My name is Emily, and I'm a recovering perfectionist, planner, and worrier. That's my husband Alex behind the camera. He's always been more of a master of going with the flow. Together, we balance each other out. I'm trying to become more of a free spirit, but I can't seem to stop organizing information. So I figured I may as well put my compulsions to good use and start documenting our story. In the summer of 2021, we sold our house and everything we owned to start traveling the world full-time. There are so many ways to travel. There's all kinds of budgets, circumstances, and factors. But we are traveling on a fixed income. We spend a month in each location we visit, and we stick to a budget. Most of our money is spent on flights, accommodations, and food. It doesn't always leave us much money to spend on attractions. But we have learned that the best experiences can be inexpensive and even free. So we are here to hopefully take away some of the pressure and help you see that you can enjoy a place even if you don't have the big budget for some of the major attractions. You don't have to feel bad about not being able to do it all. We were here for a month and we couldn't even do it all. At the end of the trip, you're going to remember the things that you did do, not the things that you didn't do. So keep watching to find out what we did in Old Town Dubrovnik, Croatia. Dubrovnik is a very popular tourist destination, so that means you're going to start to see a rise in crowd levels and accommodation prices in the peak season, which is in the summer. We're here in May and the weather is gorgeous, but the water is still a little bit cold for swimming. Right now, the crowd level is pretty manageable, but cruise season is starting to pick up and cruise ships stop here a lot. So if you're looking to avoid crowds, you might try coming in the off season, which is November through April. And if you're specifically looking to avoid the cruise ship crowds, maybe try to get to Old Town a little bit earlier. The gates actually open at 8 a.m. and you don't really start to see the crowds pick up until around 10. So even before you enter the city gates of Old Town Dubrovnik, you can get this incredible view of the West Harbor. As you can see, it tends to get a little crowded. And that's because right over here is where all the tour buses drop off their passengers. These people are coming from tours and also cruise ships, so a lot of people come at one time and get concentrated in the same area, and that's even before you walk through the gates of the city. So we wanted to show you a little alternative view that we found that we think is even better. So as you can see, you can still encounter a few problems getting down here, but it's pretty easy, and once you get down here, it's not crowded at all. One major way that we like to save money while traveling is realizing that views like this are their own attraction and they come at no extra cost. This is a fort. It has a name. That name is Lovrijenac. I hope this is Fort Lovrijenac. And by that I mean, I hope that's how you pronounce it. As a perfectly situated seaport, Dubrovnik has constantly had to defend itself. This fort was built to defend against the Venetians in the 11th century. It's said that to ensure loyalty, that troops were rotated out every 30 days. and they were only given 30 days of rations at a time. Eventually, the Venetians did invade Dubrovnik, and they made it a tributary state for about 150 years during the late Middle Ages. But other than paying tribute, Dubrovnik was essentially allowed to keep its independence. The history of Dubrovnik is really interesting. People were always trying to conquer it, and you'll see the fortifications to prove it. In fact, if you look at a map, you can see that Dubrovnik is in the region of Croatia that's separated from the rest of the country by 12 miles of the Bosnia-Herzegovina coastline. That's because it once allied itself with the Ottoman Empire and gave away some of its land for extra protection from invading forces. In the 19th century Napoleonic Wars, French forces occupied the city. After that, it was the Kingdom of Dalmatia and the Austrian Empire, and then part of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. During World War II, it was occupied as a Nazi puppet state, and then it became part of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia until the Croatian War of Independence in 1991. This is Fort Bokar, and it's just my favorite. I think it's really beautiful. I love the round shape. It was built in the mid-15th century to protect the western part of the city walls. It's got some cannons in there. That's all I really know, other than it's my favorite. I do know that you can pay to enter either of these forts, and you can pay to walk along the city walls, and that when you pay to walk along the walls, entrance to these forts are included, but it isn't in our budget. And I'm not gonna let that make me feel bad about not getting to go inside my favorite fort. I'm gonna just continue to admire it from afar and maybe do my own research later. This just in, we're at the toilets. That's right, coming to you from the public city toilets right outside the city walls of Dubrovnik. Now, this toilet is right outside the Pile Gate, the main entrance, and I just think it's kind of important to know where the toilets are, just in case. This one cost 7 kuna, or €1, which is also about $1. But if you want to follow one of Alex's favorite travel tips, instead of spending that money just on the bathroom, take that dollar or however much it is and put it towards a drink or a coffee or a snack at a cafe and use their restroom instead. Behind me is the Pile Gate. It is the main entrance to the walled city of Old Town Dubrovnik. There's a few different entrances. This is the most popular, partially because this is where all the tour buses and the cars get dropped off, and partially, well, because it's just really impressive. There's another gate that you can walk through if you continue on the sidewalk to the north side of the city, and you'll end up entering from the top of the city. But I really like entering through this one. It can get a little bit crowded, but like I said, it's really impressive and pretty, so I like to take it. As soon as you enter the Pila gates, you'll see Onofrio's water fountain. Here, you can get free, cold, and safe-to-drink water. Onofrio della Cava, who designed this fountain, is the same architect who designed the city aqueducts in the 15th century. This fountain provided the city with fresh drinking water and a beautiful way to consume it. The aqueducts were the source of fresh water for the entire city until modern plumbing took over. Now this fountain, honestly, may be one of my favorite things about this entire city. You see, I have generalized anxiety. And one way that that manifests in my brain, I call it my caveman brain, it makes me terrified to leave the house without food or water. And I just find like it's nice to not have to worry about that, because no matter what, I am not too far away from this fountain and I can always get fresh drinking water. And it's just like one of those little things about traveling to a new place that you don't think about often, but like I just really appreciate it when there's fresh drinking water. So right across from the fountain, you will find the city's tourist office. Now, yes, a visit to the tourist office is boring, and let's be honest, it's not how we operate. We usually just walk around and figure out some things that we like, do some research, and come back later and figure out what we want to see on our own time. But if you don't have a lot of time and you are interested in doing several attractions, it actually is worth checking this out, because the city of Dubrovnik has come up with some creative ways to save you money with some combined tickets that actually include a lot of the major attractions like the city walls walk, the forts, and some museums. So as you can see, the price to walk the city walls is 250 kuna for each adult. Now that's about 35 US dollars and about 35 euros. So for me and Alex, 2 adults, it would cost about $70 for us to do that city wall walk. Now there's other things included like the forts, and they have the combination tickets. But after we had spent a few days walking around the city, we actually found kind of an alternative view that for us was like enough. It kind of made us feel like, you know, maybe it's not in the budget to spend $70 walking the walls when you can just walk around and get some nice views regardless that are at no extra cost. And you know, $70 for our budget, I mean, that's like one pretty nice meal out with drinks, and that's like a few days of groceries. And like I said, we spend most of our money on flights, accommodation, and food, because those are the most important things that are going to keep us going. And sometimes you just have to weigh your budget and figure out how much you want to do something versus, you know, how much you want to save or not save by doing something. But let me show you the alternative view that we found, and let's see what you think. Okay, now don't let these stairs scare you, because if you're gonna walk the city walls, you're gonna be climbing a lot more stairs than this. Okay, I talk a big game, but I've got asthma, so it's actually not that easy, but it's fine. It's worth it. You'll end up right outside the entrance to the Foundry Museum, which is right outside the Manchetta Fort, which is the castle-like looking structure that's part of the city walls. From here, you can get a pretty amazing view. If you want another interesting view, just turn around, walk down that flight of stairs that you just came up, turn to the right, and you'll end up in a basketball court right outside of a castle. As you can see, we found this city basketball / sports ball fan ball court. From this view, you can actually get a view of what it's like to walk the city walls. So all the people that you see up there are walking around the entire walled medieval city, which is very cool. Don't get me wrong. It's great. Money wasn't an issue. all day long I'd be up there. But we found this place, kind of realized we get a pretty good view from here. Okay, as you can see, there's tons of Game of Thrones souvenirs. You'll see it everywhere around here. You may begin to worry that if you haven't seen the show, you're missing out on something. You're not. Take it from somebody who hasn't watched the show and somebody who has watched the show. You can definitely appreciate everything in Dubrovnik, even if you've never seen the show. So you'll find tons of cheesy tourist shops, but they're fun, don't get me wrong. I'm even considering getting a shirt like this to commemorate my friendship with a local cat here. So don't take it as me poo-pooing on everything that's like cheesy and fun. Not the case. Just pointing out that there are other places if you want a more authentically Croatian souvenir or a gift for somebody back home. Over here, you'll find the green market or the old market, and here's where you'll find booths set up by locals selling things that they've actually made. We got things like some treats, some homemade oils and soaps, I already said oils, some carvings, some jewelry, more treats, oh, and lots of lavender. If you didn't know, lavender is kind of a big thing in Croatia. So if you're looking for a souvenir with a little bit more personality of Dubrovnik or Croatia, it's a good place to check out. If you need another idea for a creative souvenir, try your nearest Thai shop. Why? Well, Croatians were actually credited with the popularity of the cravat. While they didn't invent the concept of tying something around your neck, they did help make it fashion. Croatian mercenaries serving in France during the 30 Years' War in the 17th century wore cravats around their necks. The French saw it, they loved it, they went with it. They expanded upon the idea. They introduced different colors, different fabrics, different configurations. There's even a museum in the capital city of Zagreb that focuses on the history of the cravat. So, you might say it's a souvenir with a cultural tie to the country. So, most of the restaurants in Old Town, especially the ones on the Straton, are pretty mediocre for the amount of money that you're going to spend. For us, if we know that we're going to be out for a long day, we always pack a lunch and bring it with us. A lot of places will try to sell you on their view, and yeah, there's a lot of restaurants that have really amazing views, but when you bring your own lunch, you'll find there are tons of places to enjoy it that have even more spectacular views. You want to know how to make a sandwich Not boring? So, in Croatia, the currency is the kuna. Fun fact, you'll find the city of Dubrovnik on the back of a 50 kuna note. Our favorite thing to do in a new place is just walk around and explore without a plan. It's especially fun to do in Dubrovnik because you get the chance to meet some of the cute street cats. Now, these cats are essentially stray cats, but they're usually very well looked after by the residents of the city. I heard one person say that they come every morning to feed the cats, and then they have a friend who comes every evening to feed them. Some of them are super friendly and let you give them a little pity pat, and some of them are more skittish. I may or may not have taken to carrying cat treats around. A few other things to note. The official language is Croatian, but English is widely spoken. There's a few words to know, like zdravo, which means hello, and hvala or hvala vam, which means thank you, and I really do find myself saying that one a lot because people here are very friendly. It's generally very safe in Dubrovnik as well. Watch out for opportunists like you would in any tourist areas, but violent crime is very rare. A big reason for this is that while it may be a tourist city, it's still a small town. People here know each other and trust each other. So it's generally very safe for women to travel alone here as well. Just exercise your normal precautions. And the tap water is safe to drink. There's also plenty of amazing sights just out here on the street for everyone to see. This is the Sponza Palace, and it's a beautiful example of Gothic and Renaissance architecture. Now, during its time, this building served a lot of state and civic functions, but in the 16th century, it became a cultural center as home to the Literary Academy of Croatia. Today, it houses the city archives. There's not really any public access to it, but you'll see that sometimes they have art exhibits displayed. And there's also an exhibit dedicated to the 1991 Croatian War of Independence. This is the Rector's Palace. It's another stellar example of Gothic and Renaissance architecture. The Rector was a government official, so basically the holder of executive power in the city. Through its time, this building housed an armory, a powder magazine, a watch house, and a prison. It's now home to the Cultural History Museum and some really sweet cats. So this is the Assumption Cathedral, or the Dubrovnik Cathedral. The money to build this cathedral was partially donated by Richard the Lionhearted of England. Now, he donated the money to have this cathedral built as a votive for having survived a shipwreck off the nearby island of Lokrum on his return from the Third Crusades. These are called the Jesuit Stairs. Why are they called that? Well, at the top there, that used to be a Jesuit college. It's now a Catholic church, but even Google Maps will tell you the church is accessible via a Baroque staircase featured on HBO's Game of Thrones. So even Google Maps is trying to neg me for never having watched Game of Thrones. But basically, like, as I understand it, like, this is the place where, like, some woman, this terrible woman, had some terrible things done to her. She was, like, had to walk up. It was really.
Oh, wait. No, you're just butchering this. Hold on. Okay. I guess I'm going to be in front of the camera for this. What actually happened was Cersei
Lannister, the House Lannister in Game of Thrones, had to do her penance on the stairs. This is after she's been in prison for a few months and everyone has publicly accused her of having an affair with her brother and all that, and her kids being illegitimate heirs to the throne. So she gets stripped down naked and has to walk barefoot while being like pelted with food and rocks and called horrible names all the way back to the keep, where she was then, back in the palace.
So that's what actually has happened.
Which was exactly what I was about to get at before I was so rudely interrupted. According to most people on the internet, other than that, they're just some boring stairs, but I beg to differ. I actually really like these stairs. They're beautiful. And here's what it really looks like at the top, because apparently that scene in the show, there was a lot of CGI, so this is the real view. So by the time we're making this video, we've been in Dubrovnik for about 3 weeks already, and the way that we do things is we spend some time exploring around. If something piques our interest, we think about it, do some research, look into it, and decide whether or not we want to go back. Well, for some reason, this is something that has been standing out to me to come back and visit. It's not that expensive, and I think it's kind of interesting. It's actually the site of Europe's oldest continuing operating pharmacy. So there's been a pharmacy that's been operating here since the year 1317. Why do I find this interesting? I have no idea. I really want to see it, and it's not that expensive. So let's go find out. That's the actual pharmacy that still operates today. That's kind of all there is to it. For around $11 US, I don't feel like it's too much money to spend. I don't feel completely put out for spending $11. And it's a gorgeous area. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's beautiful. I don't know, Alex, what do you think? Do you think it's worth $11? He says, no, I'm not impressed. Okay, here we are at the Dominican Monastery and Museum. Alex, let's go in. I'm probably gonna pay for that in more ways than one. Figure next time he wants to do something that I find kind of boring, he's gonna remind me of this.
Oh, it probably did. We were looking down. Same side left.
But I don't know, it just goes to show you don't know if you don't go. I don't feel completely put out for having spent the money, but let's just say I'm glad it wasn't any more than it was. So one thing that we did spend money on as far as attractions go is taking the cable car to the top of that mountain up there. We did this on recommendation of our Airbnb host. They said that once you get to the top of the mountain, you should spend some time exploring. There's a nice hiking trail that runs along the ridge of the mountain. I said, okay, that sounds great. That sounds beautiful. So Alex and I spent about $55 for both of us to ride to the top of the cable car. Long story short, we got up there and we went the wrong way. We never found the hike. We did find some beautiful views, but after never finding the hike, we kind of just got tired and hot and gave up and came back down. And on the way back down, we noticed that there's like a hiking trail that goes all the way up the mountain, and you can just like not pay the money for the cable car to get to the top. You can just like walk up it. I mean, sure, you have to walk up the mountain, but you know, I think I'm up for that. So anyway, I think we're gonna try that tomorrow. In a place like Dubrovnik, one of the best free activities is gonna be to go to the beach. This is Banje Beach. This is one of the most popular beaches, probably because its proximity to Old Town, its relative ease of access, and of course, that view. Now, a lot of the beaches on the Dalmatian coast are going to be rocky and maybe even have like small pebbles rather than sand. But as far as the beaches of Old Town area, this is the one. This is the most popular one, and as you can see, there's a few restaurants and bars. I think that bar turns into a nightclub. Lots of kayaking activities, and again, that view. Until next time, this is Alex and Emily reminding you that you don't have to do it all to have a great time while traveling. Take it slow and soak it all in. Hi, it's Emily. You may know me from the video that you just watched. What I said at the beginning is true. I'm a recovering perfectionist with anxiety. It's not easy to be a creative person and be a perfectionist, and it's especially not easy to put yourself out there. But this whole time in my life is about challenging myself to try all the things that I never did because I was afraid I would do them wrong, or I was afraid that they would be too scary, things like traveling the world and hosting a travel show, which is something that I wanted to do in like my wildest dreams when I was a teen and a young adult. And now I live in a time where we're just allowed to be that bold. I wanted to include things that are important to me, like history and fun facts, just because I enjoy those things. I wanted to include ways to save money because that's how we actually travel, that's how we do it. And most of all, I wanted to remind you that you don't have to do it all or see it all to have a great time while traveling. You don't have to worry that you're going to do it wrong. And I have to constantly remind myself that I don't have to show it all either. But as a perfectionist, I keep having to resist the urge to keep editing and keep adding. Even this morning, as this video sits on my computer, almost ready to upload, we were walking around and I kept taking additional footage and going, oh, I didn't show this. Oh, I didn't talk about this. Well, that's because we didn't do that. Did we show everything we did? No, we didn't show everything we did either. One can even argue that I am being a perfectionist by feeling the need to sit down and share this with you and explain myself right now. But I'm sharing this with you in hopes that it resonates with you in some way. Whether you're like me and you're working on yourself, or maybe it'll just help you to see how much can really go into the creation of a YouTube video. It's going to be a constant, mindful, and deliberate practice for me to overcome this urge to make things perfect. I definitely want to try to make my best work, and I want to try to make the best show for you too. But I want to challenge myself to set aside this self-destructive trait of perfectionism, because I believe that I have a lot of valuable things to share if I could just get out of my own way. Each new episode that I make, I'll learn more and hopefully grow into a person who can enjoy sharing what I make without focusing on the anxiety of what could have been. After all, I did learn to do that with travel, so there's every hope that I can do that with these videos too. I just wanted to thank you for starting this journey with us, and we hope you keep following along. We also have a podcast, which is on YouTube as well, where we talk more in depth about the ins and outs of nomadic life. Feel free to reach out and connect, and always let us know if you have any questions that we might be able to help with. Bye. Thank you guys.